Hello folks, welcome back to the channel. Recording a little Friday late night, well I should say early morning, honestly Friday. Little video here. I don't think based on what I've seen as far as the tracking information is concerned, I don't think I'm going to have any mail day coming up on the Saturday, so I figured I'd make a little Friday video here leading into the live stream on Friday night. So if you're checking this out around the time it comes out, then Friday evening, 9 p.m. Eastern Time, we'll be doing the usual live stream. It has been a little bit of a quiet week as far as hobby news, which is fine. It just means we'll have more of a chance to focus on collector-centric topics and discussing whatever the chat wants to talk about. And then I'm sure I'll come up with some ideas and some topics that we'll talk about between here and then. But I wanted to make a little bit of a video, kind of not as a response, because at the end of the day, it doesn't need a response. But at the same time, I thought I caught a video from Scottie B cards. So one other thing I'll mention real quick here. So according to the old YouTubes, I have surpassed 4,000 subscribers at the time that I'm recording this early on Friday morning. I do expect that to oscillate up and down, but it is kind of a fun little milestone to pass that. So that's kind of a fun thing. Now, I was watching a video from Scottie B Cards here that I'm showing off. Scottie B Cards, who's done very well, exceedingly well as far as the videos are concerned. I do catch some of the stuff here and there, so I do enjoy some of the content that he puts out. Now, one thing that I'm going to mention to you is in this video, he does a lot of napkin math. So I'm going to recommend, if you're interested in this, I would recommend checking out the video and bear in mind that some of the information does change up as time goes on because a lot of it requires certain assumptions. But it is fun for me when somebody does take the time to try to sit there and try to figure it out. And the purpose of this particular video was focusing in on the home field advantage inserts coming in 2022 Top Series 1. Now, the reason I wanted to bring this up at all, honestly, is not that I needed to talk about Topps, 2022 Top Series 1 in particular. It's not really the context of my channel to focus on specific issues, but I thought it'd be kind of a fun, avenue to go into the conversation of something that I've been wanting to touch on for a little while. And this is something that comes up on the live stream from time to time and from video comments here and there. And it's folks fixating on the whole idea of us being in like a junk wax era 2.0, overproduction, this, that, and the other thing. And obviously this particular series is going to bring a lot more of that to bear. And part of the reason I say that is because what we're going to see soon is we're going to see a lot more folks looking at the print run of this thing, and they're going to be like, oh my God, overproduction, junk wax era 2.0 and whatever. And honestly, the point of this video that I'm going to make here is, for the sake of argument, let's assume we are in a junk wax era, so to speak, comparatively. Part of the reason I push back on it, so real quick, just a quick, backtrack here. I want to kind of point something out. I've talked about before how long I've been in the hobby and how I've consistently collected from 1990 through now. So this is my 32nd year of collecting without really any real interruptions. But the reason I want to make clear in something here is that I push back a lot on this whole junk wax era thing. And the reason I push back on it is stuff like this. So this is, again, Scottie B doing some napkin math. So he was trying to figure out how many packs existed as far as doing some calculations. Again, you can dispute. Part of the calculations is all napkin math. Topps is the only one who really knows the full production figures and runs, talking about Series 1s particularly. So he took an estimate of how many packs he thought existed, about 35 million packs, 2.4, almost 2.5 million packs, let's round up a little bit here, to try to figure out how many home field advantage inserts exist. And that's kind of the idea of this video. But specifically what I want to fix it on here is that obviously that's a lot of packs, and obviously that leads to a lot of boxes. And we're just focusing on hobby only. We're not even touching on the complete sets that are going to come out later, as well as the retail production, as well as everything else. So there's going to be a lot of cards out there. But here's the funny thing about this. That first number that he came out with, 34,888,000. That is, again, napkin math, trying to figure out how many base cards he figures are out there, or how many cards are in the packs themselves, and basically starting as a starting point in order to try to figure out how many cards are there. But when people look at these numbers, they look at these numbers and they're like, oh my God, these are astronomical numbers. And I've seen some estimates out there that it could be as many as like 1 million, hobby boxes and stuff like that. It's like, oh my God, all these huge numbers, blah, blah, blah. Okay, here's the thing. Whenever I hear this whole junk wax era 2.0 thing, the reason I push back from my history in the hobby and thinking about it is that I refer back to one of my favorite sets to reference, 1991. And the napkin math on that, again, it is napkin math because we don't know what the real production numbers were. But if we were able to extrapolate, it's reasonable to assume that there were between 3 and 4 million of each individual base card produced, Well, extrapolate that over a 700 plus card base set, and you're talking about literally billions of cards for one series, one brand, 1 year. And you got to remember, from the late 80s all the way through mid-ish, late 80s, all the way through the early 90s period, there were these gigantic, enormous, unjustifiable print runs. I fixate on 1991 because obviously I opened a lot of packs of 1991 Donruss. If you're familiar with my channel, you know I've referenced this before. I opened a ton of packs of that stuff. And I opened a ton of packs of 1991 Topps and 1991 Score. And that was a big year for me in my early collecting life. But I understand it. And one of the things that actually got in there was that I have to kind of do it in comparison. And in comparison, like, these are laughably small numbers comparatively. But in terms of today, in terms of the demand for today, yes, these are very large numbers. They're probably too high. But kind of my point here in this video isn't to sit there and focus and fixate on this too much. Here's what it comes down to, and here's what it lays down to in this. If we are in overproduction era 2.0, so to speak, which is a watered down version of the real overproduction era, the real one from that late 80s, early 90s period. But if we are in that period, and for the sake of argument, I say, yeah, sure, why not? We'll go with it. If I go with you on this, here's what I propose to you. So what? Now, I know this may sound very strange. Like, what do you mean, so what? You know, they're making a lot of cards. You know, the value isn't going to retain. Again, I'm back to my original statement. So what? And I guess what it really comes down to is what you're in this whole collecting thing for. Like I said, I lived through the original junk wax era. We already had one, and we produced a lot of cards, and those cards are still out there, and you can still find boxes and packs and all that to this day. And yet, we were able to have another era. Now, what you could come back to me and say is like, well, it's been a generation, and, you know, people forgot about that, and they didn't learn their lesson, and blah, blah, blah. Okay, one important thing that we gotta kind of talk about here a little bit. Again, this is my opinion, so by all means, feel free to disagree with me. I understand. I'm totally with you. You know, you can throw it in the comments section by all means. But understand what I'm trying to get at here. What I'm trying to get at here is, as a collector, I don't really care. And the reason why I don't really care is that I'm not worried about a lot of the things that people are presumably caring about. And there's a lot of directions I could take this line of conversation, but I'll do a few, but I'm going to try to spare you the other chunk of it. Maybe I'll separate it into another video. But here's the short version. As a collector, I don't really care. And the reason I don't really care is because I understand that they've printed a ton of this stuff. And if you do the math and look at how much, and take a numbered card, again, numbered cards are the most helpful to try to do the napkin math on this stuff. A numbered card is going to tell you that, hey, every year that goes by, Topps has a Topps Gold version, and it's numbered to the current year. So in 2022, it's going to be numbered to 2,022 copies. And the odds on that are going to tell you whether the production is going up or not, as far as, you know, at least hobby is concerned, because it's going to be distributed over the entire print run. So what you're going to realize is that if it was easier to pull before and it's around the same amount, again, you go back a couple of years and you say, oh, in 2018, you know, it was 1 in 14 packs, 1 in 15 packs. I actually saw somebody make a chart of this. I don't remember the exact number, so I apologize. But the point that I'm trying to make here is it was easier to pull one of these gold cards before, and it's more difficult to pull one of these now, even though the print run has technically gone up by a couple of cards. Therefore, you can easily extrapolate that the print run overall and the amount of printing that's been done has gone up exponentially, which is 100% true. I'm not disagreeing with any of that. What I'm trying to say here and what I'm trying to convey is that who cares? And the reason I say so is that at the end of the day, it depends a lot on what we're trying to accomplish here. If I'm talking to you as a collector, what I'm saying to you is it doesn't matter. And the reason I'm saying it doesn't matter is because if you just want to build a set or something like that and have some fun with it, great. If you want to open some packs and have some fun with it, great. I looked at this product and I like opening packs. I don't get a chance to do it very much, and you don't see much of it in the channel because I don't get to do it very much. But the reality of it is that I enjoy opening packs. It's a lot of fun for me as a collector. I enjoy still the idea of the unknown, you know, the ability to pull something. But looking at the pre-sale prices and the current prices here on the Canadian side of the border, we're looking at $130, $140 a hobby box. I know they printed a ton of it. I know there will be a ton of retail available. So is that worth it to me? No, not even close. Not even by any stretch of the imagination is it even remotely worth it. However, let's assume, again, going back to why I said who cares. Again, as a collector, if you're an investor and you want to say to me, oh my God, you know, these print runs are going to mess up with the resale and all that, I'm with you. I get it. If that's your angle and that's your argument, I understand and I'm totally with you. However, if you're talking to me as a collector, then I'm going to say to you, who cares? And the reason why, and the reason why you can't do that is because if you understand exactly what I'm going to do with this, is that if I know that they printed it to the moon, well, then I'm not going to buy the boxes. And if enough people took the same tact and there's plenty of inventory available, guess what's going to happen? And again, I could extrapolate this more in another video, but I'm going to try to give the high level. If a lot of people realize the same thing at the same time, and it is the overproduction era, and all this stuff is true, which again, could very well be. Why not? For the sake of argument, let's say it is. Great. As a collector, that sounds awesome. Wait, Carlos, why? Then the prices won't be. Great. The reason why I'm saying to you is that it doesn't matter is because what's going to happen then is the product is going to sit on the proverbial shelves. Why does that matter? Because then as soon as the product sits on the proverbial shelves, it's going to sit there and rot for a while. Well, then eventually the distributors are going to want to get rid of it. The retailers are going to want to get rid of it. So they're going to have to start slashing the prices. In turn, the market is going to adapt to the situation. You made too much. The demand isn't there to justify the production. And then the price will come down. And for some collectors like myself, I'm not willing to pay $130 a box. I'm not willing to pay $100 a box. I might not even be interested at $80 a box. If you decide to go on full-fledged clearance and you want to put it like 60, 50 bucks a box, I might grab a couple of hobby boxes. Then it might be interesting to me. But I don't need to open the packs. I do enjoy it, but I don't need to do it. And the advantage of it is that I don't need to do it. Therefore, it's only going to be interesting to me if the price is right. That's why retail might be fun for me. I might do a little retail just for fun, but that's about it. That's as far as I'm willing to go. And I do collect some modern cards, but again, I'd rather just go buy the singles. And in the same vein, if the singles are overproduced, well, then I'll let the first group of people overpay. And then eventually the market will settle. A bunch will flood into eBay and other platforms, and there'll be plenty available, and the price will go down accordingly. And the home field advantage ones he's talking about here, which are basically Topps' answer to the downtown insert, well, if it turns out they made too many, because his guesstimate, and if I go a little further in the video, like I said, I do recommend checking out the video. It is napkin math, but it is kind of fun to see the exercise. And I do appreciate him using Juan Soto in this example. Good old Juan Soto. I appreciate that. And Washington Monument, come on. We enjoy that. Sorry, the Lincoln Memorial. My apologies. It is late, so I apologize. So his napkin math estimate, which obviously will get extrapolated as we get more information, he's guessing almost 4,000 cards, 4,000 copies per card of this home field advantage insert. It's a cool looking insert. I like it. But at the same time, at 4,000 copies, right now these are going for like almost $200 a card at the time that I'm recording this. That's a little too high for me. Because at 4,000 production, that's quite a bit. We'll see how much of the product gets opened and, how much of it goes out into. But if it floods eBay and the price steadily comes down, I'm feeling more like a 50 or 60 bucks for me. Maybe a little more than that, but that's kind of where I'm feeling. That's kind of where I'm settling in on it. I'd be cool with paying that price. But, at 200 bucks, I'm willing to stay away. But again, if I'm willing to stay away, then that allows me to capitalize on, how the market's going to go. The market will react accordingly. Now, one more thing I want to say related to the market, and related to Topps and related to other manufacturers. And again, there's a million directions I could go into this, and I'm trying to spare you trying to do it all in one video. It would be too long. I apologize if this has already gone on too long, but I want to get a couple of things off my chest. One other thing that I want to touch on here is that obviously one of the things that's going to be thought of if, you look at these production runs, and I'm sure there'll be some videos talking about this as we go forward. Oh man, Topps is being greedy, blah, blah, blah. They're producing so much stuff, yada, yada, yada. Okay. One important thing I want to say about that. Topps is doing what any other business would do. They're reacting to what the market is. Now, here's the thing. Here's the problem. Whenever a manufacturer creates these cards and designs these sets and then figures out production runs and does all this and tries to figure out the pricing, and all these things related to it, they're operating inside of a vacuum, and they're also operating inside of the past. They're working in a time machine. Because what you guys are seeing right now in 2022 is something that was already in the works about a year ago. And I'm only using, Topps might have a slightly different timeline, but they should be pretty close as far as the different manufacturers. And I'll give you a good example. On the channel, I did a discussion with Billy Celio of Upper Deck where we were talking about the AEW product. And in that discussion, Billy talked about the time lapse between the time that they were able to design the product, figure out everything related to it, and then get it to printing, and then doing all the process to be able to get it out into the world. And it's almost a year for them. Now, Topps may be a little quicker, a little slower, but I expect them to be right around the same time, about a year. Well, here's the thing. That means in 2021, around this same time, they were already working on a lot of this stuff. So it means that the thought process would have been based on the demand and the amount of stuff that was selling in early 2021. The market was still really hot at that time. So it would logically stand to reason that, oh man, we're selling a lot of this stuff. A lot of this stuff's going out. Therefore, we should produce it. We got to print a lot of the stuff. We have to, because that's the only way it makes any sense. Hey, it is what it is. But the important thing is that because of that 1 year lag, it means that the changing climate didn't come into consideration when they considered how much of the stuff they were going to print. As a result, then you're stuck in this situation where, like, oh shoot, we overshot the mark quite a bit, but we can't turn back. It's too late. Now, what's going to happen is if you guys decide, us, the collective we in the hobby, decides they printed too much, the Wander Franco isn't worth nearly as much as it should, the rookie card, as a result of printing way too much of the stuff, then it'll sit on shelves and it'll rot. It'll eventually go into clearance and people will, sort of go through it eventually, but there'll still be too much of it lying around. And then as a result, the Wander will not be worth very much comparatively because they printed too much of it. That's okay, because that means the market will adapt and adjust accordingly. And then as a result, Topps will look at that situation and say to themselves, hey, okay, well, we printed way too much of it. Next time around, let's cut back production. That's what's going to happen. It'll either happen in the next couple of series or it'll happen in the, 2023 series 1. And as a result of that, then maybe that'll be too little if suddenly we get a little bit of a resurgence. That's what I mean. Like, you're always about a year behind. And as a result of that, like, there's almost no way. And that's kind of brings me back to that original, the actual, legit, the OG overproduction era. And in that era, people assume, they kind of think back and they retroactively try to relitigate the entire era that happened. And they say, oh man, the manufacturers were too greedy back then. No, they weren't. They were the standard amount of greedy. They were greedy, yes, but they were the standard amount of greedy. They were looking at increasing sales year on year, and they were saying to themselves, oh man, we're printing more and they're still buying it. We're printing more and they're still buying it. Well, then keep printing more. They're reacting to the market. The problem is there is a time delay. And eventually that was going to turn. Eventually you would reach a point where you passed equilibrium and you printed too much. Well, in those days, they were a lot more reckless. Today, they're trying to be more careful, but at the same time, the data is still the same. There's still a 1 year time delay, approximately. A gap between the time that they actually, conceive of the product, figure out what inserts to put in it, figure out the ratios. And all those ratios are also going to help determine a part of the overall print run. And when you do all that, and you start it, it's like moving the Titanic and saying, like, oh man, the iceberg is in front of us, but it's 10 feet in front of us. We can't change direction. It's done. Whatever you've done, you made a wrong decision. So you're going to hit the damn thing. So that's basically what happens with stuff like this. I don't know what the market is going to do. I don't know how the market is going to react. And it is too soon to speculate. But the reason why I wanted to make this video is that I thought it would be kind of interesting to talk through some of the thoughts that I have in relation to the whole Junk Wax Era 2.0 thing, in relation to how this particular product kind of is a reflection of that. This one is going to be a very interesting one. I genuinely want to see what the impact of this print run does to those Wander rookie prices, to the insert like this home field advantage one that that Scottie B is talking about, everything related to it. As a market observer, I'm genuinely interested to see what happens next. Because for me, this is part of the fun. And one more thing I want to leave you with before I finish up. And this is kind of a general call out to folks in the hobby. There are a lot of folks that spend a lot of time, and the same folks that talk about how we're in the overproduction era and all that, this, that, and the other thing. I don't even want to get into the negativity, positivity thing. We've touched on it a little bit. I know Jeff Wilson, Sports Card Investor, has touched on it a little bit. That's the reason I've got a little search bar up there. I wanted to review that video again and kind of put it through in my head again. And I may talk about that a little bit on the live stream. But the point that I want to kind of get at it is that I like to think, and this is just me talking, I like to think that when I do stuff on this channel, I like to think that I try to put a little bit of thought into a lot of the videos that I do, especially videos like this. I like to think that I put more thought into it than most. Not everybody. I'm sure some others have put about as much thought as I do into it. I like to think that I consider a lot of my positions entirely. And I do like to think that I've considered a lot of the counters when I go through a lot of these videos. Doesn't mean that people aren't going to disagree with me, and I'm totally understanding of that, and I'm open to it, and I'm happy to hear any thoughts or comments that you might have. But the point that I'm trying to get at is that I'm looking at it as a long-term view collector predominantly. Do I sell cards? Absolutely. In fact, a card I had sold today, and I may talk about it a little bit on the live stream. But the point is that I do buy and sell. Predominantly buy, though, because most of the time I'm a collector. My ROI on my collection is very bad because I tend to buy cards and sell very few, relatively speaking. But the point is that I've been around quite a long time in the hobby, and a lot of this stuff, doesn't affect me. If you overproduce, great. That just means that I'm going to be able to open some packs cheap down the road, as far as I'm concerned. Maybe that's just my mentality. That's the way I take into this. I do find, though, that a lot of this stuff, invites people who really want to say, I told you so, desperately, to the point that it's almost, I'm embarrassed for them because they're basically sitting around waiting. They want to hang out in the comments section. They want to hang out in the chats and say the same stuff over and over again. Oh man, they're overproducing this stuff. This stuff's junk. It's overproduced. It's like, look, man, if people are enjoying it, let them have their fun. If it turns out they're wrong, and a lot of cases they are going to be, just to be clear, and it turns out they overpaid for some of this stuff, so be it. Those are the lessons that you have to learn in the hobby. You got to learn those lessons. If you don't learn the lessons, how are you ever going to get any better? How are you ever going to learn anything and be able to adapt accordingly? I'm in the situation where there's some of the stuff that's interesting. This card on this card I'm showing right now that I've been showing here the whole time that I've been talking. I would be happy to pick up this card for my collection. Not at the current prices. And I feel like, I could be completely wrong, but I feel like the price should come down as it becomes readily apparent that a fair number of these are printed. That even though it's relatively short printed compared to the average base card, it's still printed in a reasonable enough amount that there should be more than enough supply to accommodate demand. Supply and demand takes over, and then I'm able to get it at a price a little bit more reasonable and a little bit more suitable for my purposes. I still like the card, though. I still think it's cool. I don't care that it will not be worth as much as it is today at the time that I may end up buying it, if I am correct. I don't care that they produced a ton of these base cards. I don't care that they will also produce complete sets. So the point is, if you want any of the base cards in this, there will be a million different ways that you can get to them. So there shouldn't be a ton of premium value in a lot of this stuff. I don't care about that. For some reason, though, these folks who claim, and almost always, and this is the part that I don't like, they claim to be quote-unquote representing real collectors, and yet for some reason, they don't seem to want people to be able to. The same people that complain about overproduction are the same people that are complaining about the high prices of things. Well, I said earlier in this very same video that I felt that 130, 140 bucks for the hobby box, too high, especially considering how much they produced of it and the likely contents that I'm going to get out of the box. It's not worth that price. I'd be willing to take it for probably closer to half, probably a third of the value. Like I said, 50, 60 bucks probably is a little bit more likely for me personally. You do you. But the point is that that's what it's worth to me. Do I still enjoy opening packs? Absolutely. Do I still have fun with the hobby? I do. And maybe it's because my expectations are set appropriately. And that'll be the last thought I'll leave you with. My expectations in the hobby are set appropriately. I understand that business is being done. I don't discount that. I also don't pretend that this is more or less than what it is. Topps' job is to generate revenue. They make cards, yes, but the job is to generate revenue, number one. And as a collector, you should be looking out for you. You should be looking out for what you want. You should be looking out for your own interests. You should be looking to pay a price that you are comfortable with. You shouldn't be sitting there worrying about the ROI of a hobby box. And if the ROI of the hobby box is a big issue, don't buy the box. Wait for the singles, or wait for the singles to drop in price as more inventory becomes available. That's it. Why is this so complicated? Because a lot of those folks that I'm talking about, I feel like, forget about the negativity, positivity thing. I just think that they, to a certain degree, I guess at a certain degree, they have to enjoy misery because they like to complain an infinite amount of the time. And at that point, I have to ask the question, do you even enjoy this? And if you don't, why are you still here? in all honesty, if you can't have fun with this stuff, if you're so worried and fixated about, oh my God, if they overprint, then it'll mess up the value and all my stuff, this, that, and the other thing, my friends, sell your cards and leave. I'm not the person here in my channel and the way that I do my business. I'm not here to keep you. If you really don't enjoy it, please just leave. Do it for yourself. Do it for everybody else, because nobody likes to hear a whiner. Really. And by the way, I'm not saying that everything in the hobby is rosy. I like, and a lot of times on the live stream, we kind of walk that weird line where like, I don't need the incessant whining, but at the same time, I'm not going to sit here and tell you everything's rosy and everything's great and everything's awesome and blah, 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 and sing the praises of everything. No, there's plenty of stuff that we can have some fun with and poke fun at, and also, denounce when the time is right. But none of that gives you license to be able to spend all your time complaining. That's not what it's for. If you spend all your time complaining, it doesn't sound like a hobby to me. And if it doesn't sound like a hobby to me, I feel like you should probably be best served just going away. Go away, go do something else. You'll probably enjoy it more. Again, that's just my opinion. That's just the way I put it. A little bit of a rambling video. I won't do too many of these here and there, but this is my indulgence. I'm taking my card since, like I said, this week was kind of a slow week as far as that's concerned. I don't think anything's going to come in, so I may not have a pickup video this week. So I figured I'd have a little fun and have my little rant on. So that is it. I will spare you with the rest of it. Like, subscribe, and comment if you enjoyed any of the stuff. I will do more videos coming up in the coming weeks. I've got some other ideas and things that I want to do. Live stream will be on Friday, as usual, 9 p.m. Eastern Time, and we'll talk about, whatever's going on in the hobby, Series 1, anything else that you want to talk about. I know the new AEW product coming out, so I may talk about that for a little bit. A couple of minutes, not really that long, but we'll have a little fun with that. And otherwise, anything else that the chat wants to talk about. Otherwise, if you have any thoughts, I covered a lot of ground. And like I said, I tried. I know this video is not going to be short, but I tried my best to try to stay high level on a couple of these things. But if you got any thoughts on any of the things I referenced or mentioned, please feel free to throw that in the comment section. I'm happy to check it out, and I'll try to respond to it as best I can. Otherwise, thanks very much. We'll catch you in the next one.